The white dress hung from Elena's trembling fingers, a promise of security that now felt like ash on her tongue. Tonight should have been her salvation, the moment when a village orphan finally found belonging in the arms of a kind man. The veil, lovingly stitched by her own hands, would hide her downcast eyes and the secrets she'd spent a lifetime burying, the wolf she kept chained within, the crescent birthmark she'd learned to cover, the strange powers she pretended not to possess. But fate had other designs. As the last golden rays of sunlight filtered through the window of her modest cottage, Elena felt it, a stirring in her blood, an ancient call she couldn't name. Something was coming for her. Someone. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, as if the very forest surrounding her village recognized a shift in the cosmic order. "Just breathe," she whispered to her reflection, a girl with haunted green eyes staring back at her. "After tonight, you'll finally be safe." She couldn't have known that within hours, those words would shatter against the truth, that safety had never been her destiny. For while she had spent 21 years hiding from who she truly was, he had spent 15 years searching for her. The Alpha King, whose golden eyes would pierce through the veil of her carefully constructed life, whose voice would claim what had always been his. Tonight, beneath a witness moon, Elena would be taken, not by the husband she had chosen, but by the mate the goddess had ordained. And in that claiming, she would discover that the greatest prison had never been the village that tolerated her, but the lies that had kept her from her own power. Before we begin, remember to subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications. Every day, a new story awaits you. Now, let us begin. Elena stood before the village altar, her simple white dress catching the last golden rays of sunset. A crown of wildflowers adorned her dark hair, and though her smile was small, genuine happiness glowed in her eyes. After years of being the village outcast, the orphaned girl with no pack connections, she had finally found acceptance through Jacob, the kind-hearted blacksmith's son who'd proposed to her 3 moons ago. "You look beautiful," whispered Mara, her only friend, adjusting the flowers in Elena's hair. "Jacob is a lucky man." Elena squeezed Mara's hand, throat tight with emotion. "I'm the lucky one. After today, I'll finally belong somewhere." The small gathering of villagers stood in a semicircle around the wooden altar, decorated with candles and forest greenery. Jacob waited at the center, his broad shoulders squared proudly, sandy hair neatly combed back. Elena caught his eye as she approached, and the warmth in his gaze filled her with certainty. This was right. This was safe. Elder Thorn, the village's spiritual leader, raised his hands to begin the ceremony. "We gather under tonight's full moon to witness the union of Jacob, son of William, and Elena, daughter of—" A howl split the evening air, deep, powerful, and commanding. The sound seemed to penetrate Elena's very bones, making her shiver despite the warm spring air. The villagers froze, heads turning toward the surrounding forest. "What was that?" Jacob whispered, moving protectively closer to Elena. Elder Thorn's face had drained of color. "The royal guard. They're coming." Before anyone could react, figures emerged from the tree line. Warriors dressed in black leather armor approached, their movements precise and coordinated. The villagers parted instinctively, creating a path through their midst. And then, he appeared. Even if Elena hadn't known who he was, everything about him proclaimed his status. He stood taller than any man present, his broad shoulders and powerful build evident even beneath his ornate clothing. A silver circlet rested upon his raven-black hair, but it was his eyes that captured Elena's attention. Golden, intense, and focused directly on her. King Darius, the Alpha King who ruled over all packs in the region. Whispers erupted among the villagers as they bowed their heads in deference. Jacob stepped in front of Elena, a gesture that seemed both brave and foolish in the face of such power. "Your Majesty," Elder Thorn greeted, his voice wavering. "This is an unexpected honor. What brings you to our humble village?" The Alpha King ignored him, his gaze never leaving Elena. "Move aside," he commanded Jacob, his deep voice resonating with authority. "We're in the middle of our wedding ceremony," Jacob replied, tension evident in every line of his body. A low growl rumbled from the king's chest, sending a ripple of fear through the gathering. "I said, move aside." Elder Thorn placed a warning hand on Jacob's arm. "Jacob, please." "No!" Jacob stood his ground. "I don't care who he is. He can't just interrupt our... In a movement too swift for human eyes to track, the Alpha King closed the distance between them. One moment he stood at the edge of the gathering. The next he was directly before Jacob, lifting him by the throat. "I won't ask again," he said, his voice deceptively calm, while his eyes blazed with inner fire. "Stop!" Elena cried out, finding her voice at last. "Please don't hurt him." The king's gaze shifted to her, and something in his expression changed, softened, though only fractionally. He released Jacob, who fell to his knees, gasping for air. "Elena," the king said her name, like it was something precious, something he'd been waiting to taste on his tongue. "Do you know who I am?" "You're King Darius," she answered, her voice steadier than she felt. "The Alpha King." A smile touched his lips. "And do you know why I'm here?" Elena shook her head, confusion and fear battling within her. Why would the ruler of all packs concern himself with a nobody like her? The king stepped closer, and Elena felt a strange pull toward him, an inexplicable warmth spreading through her chest. He reached out, his fingers hovering just above her cheek without touching. "I've found you at last," he murmured, his voice dropping to a register that seemed meant only for her ears. Then louder, he addressed the gathered villagers. "This wedding will not proceed." Jacob had regained his feet, fury and confusion warring on his face. "You have no right." "I have every right." The king cut him off, his voice carrying the weight of absolute authority. "She doesn't belong to you." His gaze returned to Elena, intense and possessive. "She is mine, my true mate." A collective gasp rose from the villagers. True mates were rare, almost mythical, the strongest bond possible between werewolves, ordained by the moon goddess herself. "That's impossible," Elena found herself saying. "I would have known." But even as the words left her lips, she wondered if that explained the strange pull she felt toward him, the inexplicable warmth in her chest whenever their eyes met. "You've been suppressing your wolf," the king stated. Not a question, but a certainty. "Living almost as a human. It's why you haven't felt the full strength of our bond." Elena felt the blood drain from her face. How could he know that? Since childhood, she'd been taught to hide her wolf nature, to blend in with humans, to never shift unless absolutely necessary. It was the only way to survive as an orphan with no pack protection. "Take her," the king commanded his guards, turning away as if the matter was settled. Jacob lunged forward, but 2 guards intercepted him easily. "Elena!" he shouted as more guards surrounded her. "Wait!" Elena protested, panic rising in her throat. "You can't just take me. I don't even know you." The Alpha King paused, turning back to her with an expression that mingled surprise and amusement. "You're questioning me?" There was curiosity in his tone rather than anger. "Yes," Elena replied, finding courage in desperation. "I was about to marry Jacob. This is my home." "This was never your home," he said, his voice softening slightly. "And he was never meant to be your husband." The king approached her again, and this time, he did touch her, his warm fingers grazing her cheek with unexpected gentleness. "You've lived your entire life not knowing who you truly are. Come with me, and I'll show you." Something in his words, in his touch, resonated deep within Elena, awakening a longing she hadn't known existed. Her wolf, so long suppressed, stirred in response to his presence. "Please," she whispered, tears threatening. "At least let me say goodbye." The king studied her face for a long moment before giving a curt nod. "You have 1 minute." Elena rushed to Jacob, who was still restrained by the guards. "Jacob, I'm so sorry." "Don't apologize," he said fiercely. "I'll come for you. I won't let him take you like this." She shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You can't fight him. He'll kill you." "Then what do we do?" Desperation cracked through Jacob's voice. Elena had no answer. The pull she felt toward the Alpha King confused and frightened her, but some instinct told her that fighting it would be futile. "I don't know, but promise me you won't do anything reckless." Before Jacob could respond, strong hands gripped Elena's shoulders. "Time's up," the king said, his breath warm against her ear. As she was led away, Elena looked back at the village that had never truly accepted her, at the man who had offered her a chance at belonging, and felt her world crumbling around her. Yet beneath the fear and confusion, something else stirred, a primitive recognition that whispered this was somehow right, that she was finally heading toward her true destiny, no matter how unwillingly. The last thing she saw before the forest swallowed them was Jacob's face, twisted in anguish and determination, silently promising that this wasn't over. Elena could only hope he wouldn't get himself killed trying to save her from a fate that, deep in her bones, she was beginning to suspect had been inevitable all along. The journey to the Alpha King's castle passed in a blur for Elena. Mounted behind King Darius on his massive black stallion, she had no choice but to hold onto his waist as they galloped through the moonlit forest. His body radiated heat like a furnace, and with each mile they traveled, Elena became increasingly aware of a strange resonance between them, as if some invisible thread connected their heartbeats. When they finally emerged from the dense woods, Elena gasped at the sight before her. Unlike the modest stone structures of her village, the king's castle was a sprawling fortress that seemed to grow from the very mountainside, its dark towers reaching toward the stars like clawed fingers. Torches lined the approach, casting dancing shadows across the ancient stone walls. "Welcome to Shadow Crest," the king said, his deep voice vibrating through his back against her chest. "Your new home." Elena remained silent, still processing the enormity of what had happened. In the span of a few hours, her entire life had been upended. The security she'd sought through marriage to Jacob had been snatched away, replaced by this bewildering new reality. Guards stood at attention as they rode through the massive iron gates into a courtyard bustling with activity despite the late hour. Servants moved with purpose, warriors trained in one corner, and Elena noticed immediately how everyone's gaze lowered respectfully as the king passed, though many shot curious glances at her once he'd moved beyond them. King Darius dismounted in one fluid motion, then reached up to help Elena down. His hands spanned her waist easily, and when her feet touched the ground, he kept his grip on her a moment longer than necessary. "You must be exhausted," he said, studying her face with those unnervingly golden eyes. "Lydia will show you to your chambers." An older woman with silver-streaked hair and a stern expression stepped forward, bowing slightly. "This way, miss." Elena hesitated, looking up at the imposing figure of the king. "And then what? Am I your prisoner?" Something like hurt flashed across his features before his expression hardened again. "You are my mate, not my prisoner. Rest tonight, and tomorrow we'll talk properly." Before she could respond, he turned and strode away, his long cloak billowing behind him. Elena watched him go, conflicted emotions churning inside her. Part of her, the human part, was terrified and angry at being abducted. But another part, the wolf she'd suppressed for so long, felt an inexplicable relief, as if she'd finally returned to where she belonged. "Miss?" Lydia prompted, interrupting her thoughts. With a sigh, Elena followed the woman through a maze of corridors, up winding staircases, and past elaborate tapestries depicting wolf packs in ancient battles. The castle was a strange mix of intimidating grandeur and unexpected warmth. Despite the stone walls, fires burned in hearths throughout, and rich carpets softened their footsteps. "Here we are," Lydia announced, opening a heavy wooden door. Elna stepped inside and couldn't suppress a gasp. The chamber was larger than the entire cottage she'd shared with 3 other orphans growing up. A massive 4-poster bed dominated one wall, draped with blue silk that matched the curtains framing tall windows. A fire crackled in a stone hearth, and plush rugs covered the floor. "The bathroom is through there," Lydia indicated a smaller door. "I've laid out fresh clothes and nightwear. There's hot water ready for bathing." Elena turned slowly, taking in the luxury surrounding her. This can't be right. Servants' quarters would be sufficient. Lydia's stern expression softened slightly. "These aren't just any quarters, miss. This is the Queen's suite." "Queen's—" Elena's voice caught. There must be some mistake. No mistake. The king's orders were very specific. Lydia moved to a wardrobe and opened it, revealing an array of beautiful gowns. "These should fit you. He had them made months ago." "Months?" Elena's head spun with this new information. How could he have known about me months ago? "We've never met before today." Lydia's lips pressed into a thin line. "It's not my place to explain, miss. The king will tell you everything tomorrow." She paused at the door. "Is there anything else you need tonight?" Elena wanted to demand answers, to insist on being taken back to her village immediately, but exhaustion suddenly weighed heavily on her shoulders. "No, thank you." After Lydia departed, Elena sank onto the edge of the bed, her white wedding dress now crumpled and stained from the journey. Tears welled in her eyes as the events of the day crashed over her. She should be with Jacob now, beginning their life together. Instead, she was in this strange castle, claimed by a king she didn't know, for reasons she didn't understand. The hot bath Lydia had mentioned beckoned, and Elena decided that at least she could wash away the physical discomfort of the day. The bathroom, another luxury she'd never experienced, contained a large copper tub filled with steaming water scented with lavender. Despite her intention to make it a quick wash, Elena found herself lingering in the soothing warmth, letting it ease her tense muscles. Afterward, she reluctantly donned one of the silk nightgowns provided, disturbed by how perfectly it fit her. She plaited her damp hair and moved to the window, gazing out at the moonlit mountains beyond. "Jacob," she whispered to the night, "what am I going to do?" A knock at the door startled her. Clutching the neckline of her nightgown, Elena called, "Yes?" The door opened to reveal a young girl, perhaps 13, carrying a tray. "I brought you some dinner, my lady. The king thought you might be hungry." Elena hadn't realized how famished she was until the aroma of fresh bread and roasted meat reached her. "Thank you," she said, letting the girl place the tray on a small table near the fire. "I'm Mina," the girl said with a shy smile. "If you need anything during the night, just pull that bell cord." She pointed to a braided rope hanging beside the bed. Elena nodded, studying the girl curiously. "Mina, do you know why the king brought me here?" Mina's eyes widened. "Everyone knows, my lady. You're his true mate. The entire kingdom has been waiting for your arrival. But how could he have known? We'd never met before today." Mina looked around nervously, as if worried about being overheard. "There are rumors," she whispered, "that the king has been searching for you for years, that he first saw you in a vision sent by the moon goddess herself." Elena frowned. "That's impossible." "Is it?" Mina's expression was earnest. "True mates are blessed by the goddess, and the king, he's not like other alphas. His powers go beyond the ordinary." Before Elena could question her further, Mina bobbed a quick curtsy. "I should go. Enjoy your meal, my lady." She hurried from the room, leaving Elena with more questions than answers. Elena picked at the food, which was delicious despite her troubled mind. Outside, clouds drifted across the moon, and she found herself drawn to the window again. The courtyard below had emptied, but movement caught her eye. A massive black wolf prowling the perimeter of the castle, its powerful body moving with lethal grace. As if sensing her gaze, the wolf stopped and looked up, golden eyes meeting hers across the distance. King Darius. Even in his wolf form, she recognized him instantly. A shiver ran down her spine, not of fear, but of something deeper, more primal. Her suppressed wolf stirred again, yearning to break free, to run alongside that magnificent creature below. Elena stepped back from the window, heart racing. This was madness. She didn't know this man, this king. She couldn't possibly feel such a connection to him. Yet denying it felt like lying to herself. Sleep eluded her for hours as she tossed in the luxurious bed, torn between planning an escape and surrendering to the inexplicable pull she felt toward the Alpha King. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were filled with running through moonlit forests, a powerful black wolf always at her side. Morning came too soon. Sunlight streaming through the windows Elena had forgotten to cover. She had barely finished dressing in one of the simpler gowns from the wardrobe, a forest green creation that complemented her eyes, when another knock sounded at her door. Lydia entered, her expression as stern as ever. "The king requests your presence for breakfast. What if I refuse?" Elena challenged, lifting her chin. Lydia's eyebrow arched slightly. "You are not a prisoner, miss. You may refuse if you wish. However," her voice softened marginally, "I would advise against it. The king has waited a long time for this day." Elena sighed, recognizing the wisdom in facing this situation head-on. "Very well." Lydia led her through the castle, which looked different in daylight. Stained glass windows cast colorful patterns across the stone floors, and Elena noticed details she'd missed in the darkness. Intricate carvings of wolves running along the banisters, fresh flowers arranged in alcoves, tapestries depicting not just battles, but also scenes of celebration and peace. They arrived at a set of double doors guarded by 2 warriors who bowed and opened the way for them. Inside was not the grand dining hall Elena had expected, but a smaller, more intimate space. Morning light streamed through large windows overlooking a garden, illuminating a table set for 2. And there he stood, King Darius, his back to her as he gazed out the window. He wore no crown this morning, and his attire, though still fine, was less formal than the previous night. He turned as she entered, and Elena's breath caught at the intensity of his gaze. "Elena," he said, her name a caress on his lips. "You look beautiful." She remained by the door, unwilling to move closer. "You've brought me here against my will, and now you expect me to dine with you as if nothing is wrong?" Instead of anger, his expression showed something like admiration at her defiance. "I expect nothing. I hope for your understanding, once you hear what I have to say." He gestured to the table. "Please join me. After breakfast, I'll answer all your questions. Then, if you still wish to leave, I won't stop you." Elena hadn't expected that. Cautiously, she approached the table, taking the seat a servant pulled out for her. "You would let me go?" King Darius sat across from her, his golden eyes never leaving her face. "I would never force you to stay against your will. That's not what being true mates means." A shadow crossed his features. "But before you decide, there's something you should know. Something about your past, about who you really are." "What could you possibly know about my past?" Elena asked, unsettled by his certainty. The king leaned forward, his voice dropping to ensure only she could hear his next words. "I know who your parents were, Elena. I know why they left you in that village. And I know about the birthmark on your left shoulder, the crescent moon that marks you as more than just my mate, but as the rightful Luna Queen of all wolf packs." Elena's hand flew to her shoulder, where beneath the fabric of her gown lay the crescent-shaped birthmark she'd kept hidden her entire life. No one in the village knew about it. No one except the old woman who had raised her until age 10. "How could you possibly know that?" she whispered, a chill running down her spine. "Because," King Darius said softly, "your parents were my dearest friends, and before they died, they made me promise to find you and keep you safe. It's taken me 15 years to fulfill that promise." Elena stared at him, her world tilting on its axis once more. "My parents? You knew my parents?" "Yes." He nodded, something like grief flickering in his golden eyes. "And it's time you learned the truth about them, about yourself, and about why you were hidden away all these years." As servants began bringing in platters of food, Elena sat frozen, her appetite forgotten. The mystery of her origins, which had haunted her entire life, was about to be revealed, and something told her that once she heard what King Darius had to say, nothing would ever be the same again. Elena stared at the untouched food before her, her appetite gone. Across the table, King Darius watched her with an intensity that made her skin tingle, not unpleasantly, which only confused her more. "You claim to have known my parents," she said finally, meeting his golden gaze. "Yet I grew up believing they abandoned me." A muscle in his jaw tightened. "They never abandoned you. They gave their lives to protect you." "Protect me from what?" The king glanced at the servants still moving about the room. "Leave us," he commanded, and they immediately filed out, closing the doors behind them. When they were alone, he continued, "What do you know about the Great War?" Elena frowned. "Only what everyone knows. 20 years ago, the Northern Pacts rebelled against the royal bloodline. The rebellion was crushed, and peace was restored. That's the simplified version." Darius nodded. "What most don't know is why the rebellion started, or how it truly ended." He rose from his chair, moving to the window. "The Northern Alpha, Casimir, coveted the throne. But our laws are clear. Only those of the royal bloodline can rule all packs. So he spread rumors that the royal line had become weak, that their connection to the moon goddess had faded." Elena shifted uncomfortably. "What does this have to do with my parents?" Darius turned back to her, his expression grave. "Your father was my cousin, Elena, Prince Alaric of the royal house. Your mother was Luna Serena, descended from the most powerful line of healers our kind has ever known." The room seemed to spin around Elena. "That's impossible. I'm no one. Just an orphan from a small village. You are Princess Elena, rightful heir to the Northern Territories, and my true mate." His voice softened on the last words. "The crescent birthmark you bear is the mark of the royal bloodline, specifically the mark of those who can commune directly with the moon goddess." Elena's hand instinctively went to her shoulder again. The old woman who had raised her had always insisted she keep the mark hidden, warning that it would bring her danger. Now she understood why. "If what you say is true," she said slowly, "why was I hidden away? Why didn't you find me sooner?" Darius's expression darkened. "When the rebellion was nearly defeated, Casimir became desperate. He sent assassins to kill your parents, knowing that your father was next in line for the throne after my father. They managed to get you away, hiding you with trusted allies in that small village, but they were mortally wounded in the process. His hands clenched into fists. Your mother used the last of her strength to cast a powerful concealment spell on you, one that would hide your scent, your power, even the bond between us, until you came of age. But I came of age 3 years ago, Elena pointed out. The spell was linked to the full moon of your 21st year, Darius explained. 3 nights ago, when the moonlight touched your skin, the spell began to fade. That's when I finally sensed you. His eyes took on a haunted look. For 15 years, I've been searching for you, following even the faintest rumors of a girl with a crescent mark. I knew you were alive, but it was as if you existed behind a veil I couldn't penetrate. Elena stood abruptly, needing to move, to process what she was hearing. It's too much. I've spent my entire life believing I was unwanted, abandoned. And now you're telling me I'm some lost princess? That my parents died heroes? Her voice cracked. Why should I believe any of this? Instead of answering immediately, Darius walked to a cabinet against the wall and withdrew a small wooden box. He brought it to her, opening it to reveal a silver locket. This belonged to your mother, he said softly. Open it. With trembling fingers, Elena took the locket and clicked it open. Inside was a tiny portrait of a couple, a handsome man with her same green eyes and a beautiful woman with her dark hair. On the opposite side was an inscription. To our beloved Elena, may the moon guide you home. Tears welled in her eyes as she traced the faces of the parents she couldn't remember. They loved me, she whispered, the realization washing over her like a healing balm. Very much, Darius confirmed, his voice gentle. As did I, even before I met you. You were like a little sister to me when you were born. I promised your father I would find you and protect you. Elena closed the locket, clutching it tightly. If my parents were so important, why didn't Casimir try to find me too? Surely killing the entire bloodline would have been his goal. A shadow crossed Darius's face. He believed he had. The night your parents were killed, rumors spread that you had died with them. I encouraged those rumors, hoping they would keep you safe until I could find you. His jaw tightened. But Casimir is patient and cunning. He's been building his strength in exile. And recently, whispers have reached me that he's learned of your survival. A chill ran down Elena's spine. Is that why you came for me yesterday? You think I'm in danger? I know you are, Darius said gravely. My scouts reported northern wolves in the area around your village. I couldn't wait any longer. His eyes softened as they met hers. Though I admit, finding you on the verge of marrying another was unexpected. A pang of guilt shot through Elena as she thought of Jacob. He was kind to me, one of the few who was. I don't doubt it, Darius said, surprising her with his understanding. But he could never have protected you from what's coming. Elena sank back into her chair, overwhelmed. And what is coming? War, Darius said simply. Casimir has spent years gathering allies, spreading dissent among the packs. With you revealed as alive, he'll move quickly to eliminate the threat you represent. Me? I'm no threat to anyone. I can barely shift. I was taught to suppress my wolf nature my entire life. Something fierce flickered in Darius's eyes. That's because they feared your power, Elena. The women of your mother's line aren't just healers. They're said to be able to call upon the moon goddess herself. Combined with the royal blood from your father, he shook his head. You may be the most powerful wolf of our generation. You just don't know it yet. Elena laughed bitterly. I think you've mistaken me for someone else. I'm just me. Darius stepped closer, and Elena felt that strange pull between them intensify. Have you never wondered why you could sense things others couldn't? Why wounds healed faster when you tended them? Why animals were drawn to you? Elena stilled. Those were things she'd always hidden, believing them to be further proof of her strangeness, her otherness. Those are just glimpses of what you're capable of, Darius continued. With proper training, you could become what you were always meant to be. And what is that exactly? My queen, he said simply. The Luna Queen who was prophesied to unite all packs and usher in a new era of peace. Elena stood again, needing distance from his overwhelming presence. This morning you said if I wished to leave you wouldn't stop me. Does that offer still stand? Pain flashed across his features, but he nodded. It does. I won't force you to accept your heritage or your place by my side. His voice dropped lower. But Elena, you should know, the bond between true mates isn't something that can be ignored forever. It will only grow stronger, more insistent. I need time, she said, clutching the locket like a lifeline. Time to process all of this. Of course, he agreed, though she could see it cost him. The castle and its grounds are open to you. Explore, ask questions, get to know the home that should have been yours all along. He hesitated, then added, but please don't try to leave the castle walls. I can't guarantee your safety beyond them. Elena wanted to argue that she could take care of herself, but the gravity in his expression stopped her. If even half of what he'd told her was true, there were dangers she wasn't prepared to face. One day, she requested. Give me one day to myself, to think. Darius inclined his head. As you wish. I'll have Lydia show you around. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. Elena, whatever you decide, know this. I have waited 15 years to find you. I can wait a little longer for you to find yourself. With that, he was gone, leaving Elena alone with the locket that proved everything she'd believed about herself had been a lie. The day passed in a blur as Elena explored the castle with Lydia as her reluctant guide. The stern woman softened slightly when Elena expressed genuine interest in the castle's history, pointing out tapestries that depicted the royal lineage, including, Elena was startled to see, her own parents. You look like her, Lydia commented as they paused before a portrait of Luna Serena. Same eyes, same spirit. Elena studied the beautiful woman who had given her life. Did you know her? I was her lady's maid, Lydia admitted. And I helped hide you the night. She swallowed hard. The night they were taken from us. Then you've known who I was all along? Lydia nodded. One of the few. The king swore us to secrecy. For your protection. As the tour continued, Elena found herself drawn to a secluded garden tucked behind the eastern wing of the castle. Stone benches surrounded a small pond where water lilies floated peacefully. The air was heavy with the scent of herbs and flowers. This was your mother's garden, Lydia explained. She grew healing herbs here and taught the art to other wolves. Elena knelt beside a patch of wolfsbane, touching the purple flowers gently. Something stirred within her. A memory, perhaps, or simply an affinity for the place. I'll leave you here, Lydia said softly. Sometimes solitude is what we need most when our world has been upended. Alone in the garden, Elena sat on a bench and opened the locket again, studying the faces of her parents. Had they sat in this very spot? Had her mother's hands tended these plants? For the first time, she felt a connection to her past, to her true self. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the garden, Elena became aware of a presence watching her. Turning, she found a massive black wolf at the garden's entrance, its golden eyes regarding her intently. Darius. Instead of fear, Elena felt a strange calm settle over her. She patted the space beside her on the bench. You can join me, you know. In human form, preferably. The wolf disappeared behind a hedge, and moments later, Darius emerged, dressed simply in a loose shirt and dark trousers. I didn't mean to intrude, he said, remaining at a distance. It's your castle, Elena pointed out. But it's your garden now, he countered. Your mother would have wanted you to have it. They fell into silence, watching as the first stars appeared in the deepening twilight. I've been thinking about everything you told me, Elena finally said. About my parents, about who I am, about us. Darius remained perfectly still, as if afraid any movement might shatter the moment. I still don't know if I believe in prophecies or destinies, she continued, but I do believe my parents loved me, and that they died protecting me. She turned to face him directly. And I believe you've spent years searching for me, honoring your promise to them. I would have searched forever, he said simply. Elena nodded, a decision crystallizing within her. I can't promise to be the queen you think I'm meant to be. I can't even promise to be a proper mate, but I can promise to try, to learn about my heritage, to explore these powers you say I have. Hope dawned in his eyes, but he tempered it carefully. And what of your village? Of Jacob? Elena's heart twinged with guilt. I need to explain to him at least. He deserves that much. That would be dangerous. Darius frowned. If Casimir's wolves are watching the village, then we'll be careful, Elena insisted. But I won't leave Jacob believing I abandoned him. Not when he's been nothing but kind to me. Darius studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Very well. We'll go together, in disguise when the moon is dark. 3 days from now. Thank you, Elena said, genuinely surprised by his willingness to compromise. Don't thank me yet, he warned. The path ahead won't be easy. You'll need to learn years of protocol, history, and combat training in a matter of months if we're to face Casimir prepared. Combat training? Elena echoed, alarmed. A small smile played at the corners of his mouth. Did you think being queen was all about wearing crowns and giving orders? I hadn't really thought about it at all, she admitted. Until yesterday, my greatest ambition was to be a blacksmith's wife. His smile faded. I'm sorry about that, Elena. I know my timing was less than ideal. You could say that, she agreed dryly. Then, more seriously, why didn't you come to me before? Explain things privately, instead of interrupting the ceremony. Darius ran a hand through his dark hair, looking almost sheepish. I tried. I arrived in the village that morning, intending to speak with you alone, but when I saw you in your wedding dress, walking toward another man, his jaw tightened. My wolf took over. The thought of losing you when I'd just found you, it was more than I could bear. The raw honesty in his voice touched something in Elena. Despite everything, she found herself reaching out, placing her hand over his where it rested on the bench between them. The moment their skin touched, that strange warmth she'd felt before flared to life, spreading up her arm and throughout her body. Darius inhaled sharply, clearly feeling it too. What is that? She whispered. The mate bond, he explained, his voice husky. It's been muted all these years by your mother's spell, but now that it's fading, Elena should have pulled away. Instead, she found herself leaning closer, drawn by a force she couldn't explain or resist. Darius remained perfectly still, letting her set the pace, his golden eyes darkening as she moved nearer. Just as their faces were inches apart, a howl split the night. Urgent. Warning. Darius was on his feet instantly, his body tense. That's the perimeter alarm. Elena stood too, her heart racing. What does it mean? His expression hardened into the Alpha King she'd first met. It means we're under attack. He took her hand, pulling her toward the castle. Come, we need to get you somewhere safe. Attack? Fear coursed through her. Is it Casimir? Darius confirmed grimly. He's found you sooner than I expected. As they rushed through the garden, more howls joined the first, some in warning, others in pain. The peaceful evening had transformed into a nightmare in seconds. I'm not ready for this, Elena said, panic threatening to overwhelm her. Darius stopped, turning to face her, his hands gripping her shoulders. You are stronger than you know, Elena. But right now I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Looking into his fierce golden eyes, Elena realized that despite everything, the abduction, the revelations, the upheaval of her entire life, she did trust him. Perhaps she always had. On some level she hadn't understood until now. Yes, she said firmly. I trust you. Relief flashed across his face. He pressed his forehead briefly against hers, a gesture so tender it made her heart ache, then pulled away. Then let's go. It's time you learned what it truly means to be a royal wolf. As they raced toward the castle, the full moon broke through the clouds, bathing them in silver light. And for the first time in her life, Elena felt her suppressed wolf surge forward, not with fear or shame, but with purpose. Whatever came next, she would face it. Not just as Elena the orphan, but as Elena, rightful princess of the Northern Territories, and mate to the Alpha King. Darius led Elena through a hidden passage behind a tapestry, descending stone stairs that spiraled deep beneath the castle. Torch flames cast dancing shadows on the walls as they hurried downward, the sounds of battle growing fainter behind them. Where are we going? Elena asked, breathless from their pace. The heart chamber, Darius replied, his voice tight with urgency. It's the most protected place in the castle, and where our ancestors communed with the moon goddess. They emerged into a circular room, carved directly from the mountain's bedrock. Moonlight filtered through a crystal dome overhead, illuminating ancient runes etched into the walls. At the center stood a raised dais with a pool of still water that seemed to glow with an inner light. We'll be safe here, Darius said, securing the heavy door behind them. My best warriors are holding Casimir's forces back. Elena moved toward the pool, drawn by its ethereal glow. What is this place? A sacred space. created when the first Alpha King made his covenant with the moon goddess. Darius joined her, his expression solemn. This is where royals come to connect with their deepest power. And you think I can— A tremendous crash shook the chamber, dust raining from the ceiling. Darius's head snapped up, alarm evident in his eyes. They've breached the eastern defenses, he growled. They're moving faster than I anticipated. Another explosion rocked the castle, closer this time. Elena grabbed Darius's arm. Your people are dying up there, fighting for us. For you, he corrected gently. They fight for their future queen. A queen they've never met. Elena countered. I should help. Darius shook his head. You haven't been trained. Then train me. Now. She gestured to the pool. You said this place connects royals to their power. Show me how to use it. Conflict played across his features. It's dangerous, Elena. The power could overwhelm you if you're not prepared. Another crash. More violent than before. Screams echoed down the passage. We don't have time to debate this, Elena insisted. What must I do? After a moment's hesitation, Darius nodded. Stand in the pool. Let the water touch your birthmark. Then open yourself to the goddess. Let your wolf free. Completely free. For the first time. Elena kicked off her shoes and stepped onto the dais, her heart hammering against her ribs. She hesitated at the pool's edge, suddenly terrified. All her life, she'd suppressed her wolf nature, fearing it made her different, dangerous. Now she was being asked to embrace it fully. I'll be right here, Darius promised, sensing her fear. I won't let anything happen to you. Drawing a deep breath, Elena stepped into the pool. The water was neither warm nor cold, rising to her knees as she waded to the center. She pulled her gown off one shoulder, exposing the crescent birthmark that had marked her since birth. Now what? She called, her voice echoing strangely in the chamber. Close your eyes, Darius instructed. Feel for your wolf. Don't just acknowledge her. Become her. Elena closed her eyes, focusing inward. Deep within, she sensed her wolf, the part of herself she'd always feared and denied. It paced restlessly, wary after years of rejection. I'm sorry, Elena whispered internally. I didn't understand. But I'm ready now. The water around her began to ripple, though she stood perfectly still. Overhead, moonlight intensified, pouring through the crystal dome in concentrated beams that converged on the pool. That's it, Darius encouraged. Let her come forward. Elena felt her wolf surge toward the surface, no longer content to be hidden. Her skin tingled, her senses sharpened, and the birthmark on her shoulder began to burn, not painfully, but with a warmth that spread throughout her body. The chamber door burst open with a deafening crack. Elena's eyes flew open to see a massive gray wolf leading a dozen others into the sacred space. Behind them, 3 of Darius's guards lay motionless. Casimir, Darius snarled, shifting instantly into his black wolf form, positioning himself between Elena and the intruders. The gray wolf's muzzle pulled back in what could only be described as a smile. In a fluid motion, he shifted to human form, a tall man with silver-streaked hair and cold eyes that fixed on Elena with predatory intensity. The lost princess returns, he said, his voice silky with malice. How convenient to find both of you here. Darius growled, his hackles raised. Oh, come now, Darius, Casimir chided. Surely you didn't think those pathetic defenses would keep me out. I've had spies in your castle for months. Horror washed over Elena as she realized the implications. The servants. Not all of them, Casimir smirked. Just enough to ensure I knew exactly when the princess's concealment spell began to fade. His gaze raked over her. Though I must say, you're hardly what I expected from the legendary bloodline. Standing there, shaking like a leaf, Elena realized she was indeed trembling, not with fear, but with a strange energy that seemed to pulse through her veins in time with the glowing water surrounding her. Casimir turned his attention back to Darius. I've waited 15 years for this moment, the death of the last 2 royals, and my ascension to the throne. You'll never be king, Darius growled, having shifted back to human form, though he remained coiled to attack. The Pax will never accept you. They'll accept whoever wears the crown, Casimir replied coldly. And once you're both dead, there will be no one left to challenge me. He gestured to his wolves, who began circling around the dais. Kill the girl first, he ordered. I want him to watch her die before I take his throne. 2 wolves leaped toward the pool, Darius intercepted one, his massive black form slamming into the attacker with bone-crushing force. But the second wolf cleared him, lunging directly at Elena. Time seemed to slow. Elena saw the wolf's bared teeth, the hatred in its eyes, the powerful muscles propelling it toward her throat. She should have been terrified, should have tried to flee. Instead, something awakened inside her, something ancient and powerful. The birthmark on her shoulder blazed with silver light. Energy surged through her body, and suddenly, her wolf was no longer contained. The shift happened in an instant, painless, natural, as if she'd been doing it her entire life. Where Elena had stood, a pure white wolf now crouched, her green eyes gleaming with newfound power. She met the attacking wolf mid-air, her jaws closing around its throat with unerring precision. The chamber erupted into chaos. Wolves attacked from all sides, but Elena moved with a grace and strength she'd never known she possessed. Beside her, Darius fought with the ferocity of a true alpha, his massive form a blur of deadly precision. Casimir watched in growing alarm as his wolves fell one by one. "Impossible," he hissed, backing toward the door. "You should be helpless, untrained." Elena stalked toward him, her white fur almost luminous in the moonlight. This wasn't training or experience guiding her. It was instinct, heritage, the awakened blood of countless royal wolves flowing through her veins. Casimir shifted back to wolf form, realizing too late that he'd underestimated his prey. He lunged for Elena's throat, but she was ready. Sidestepping his attack, she caught him mid-leap, her teeth sinking into his shoulder. The usurper howled in pain, twisting to break free. But Elena held fast, driving him to the ground with a strength that belied her size. Her eyes met Darius's across the chamber, and in that moment, they moved as one, true mates in perfect harmony. Darius circled behind Casimir, cutting off his retreat. Together, they forced him back against the chamber wall, wounded and cornered. Panting heavily, Casimir shifted back to human form, his shoulder bleeding profusely. "You think this changes anything?" he spat. "I still have allies throughout the territories. This is only the beginning." Elena shifted too, standing naked and unashamed before her enemy. The birthmark on her shoulder continued to glow with silver light, casting eerie shadows across her face. "You're wrong," she said, her voice resonating with newfound authority. "This is the end. Your end." She placed her hand on the rune-covered wall beside Casimir's head. The ancient symbols began to glow, responding to her touch, to the royal blood flowing through her veins. "What are you doing?" Fear crept into Casimir's voice for the first time. "Something my mother would have done," Elena replied. Knowledge she hadn't known she possessed, suddenly flowing through her. Invoking justice. The runes pulsed with light, spreading outward from her hand like ripples in water. Casimir tried to move away, but found himself frozen in place, the magic of the heart chamber responding to Elena's command. "For 15 years, you've lived in the shadows, plotting death and destruction," she said, each word heavy with power. "For the murder of my parents, for the attack on this castle, for the lives lost today, I pass judgment." The runes flared blindingly bright. Casimir screamed as the light enveloped him, his body gradually turning to stone before their eyes. Within moments, where the usurper had stood was now a statue, a permanent reminder of the fate awaiting those who threatened the royal bloodline. Elena swayed, the enormous expenditure of power leaving her drained. Darius caught her before she fell, cradling her against his chest. "I didn't know I could do that," she murmured, looking up at him in wonder. "I did," he said softly, brushing hair from her face. "I've always known what you were capable of. You just needed to believe it yourself." The remaining enemy wolves, seeing their leader defeated, fled the chamber. In the sudden silence, Darius helped Elena to a bench along the wall, wrapping his cloak around her shoulders. "How do you feel?" he asked, concern evident in his golden eyes. Elena considered the question. She should have been exhausted, terrified by what had just happened. Instead, she felt complete. For the first time in her life, she had embraced both sides of her nature, human and wolf, and found strength in their unity. "I feel like myself," she answered honestly. "Like I've finally woken up from a long sleep." Darius smiled, the expression transforming his usually stern features. "That's exactly what happened. You've awakened to your true nature, your true power." He took her hand gently. "And I hope to us." Elena looked at their intertwined fingers, feeling the mate bond humming between them. No longer a strange, frightening sensation, but a comforting certainty. "I still have questions," she said. "And I still need to speak with Jacob." "Of course," Darius nodded. "I would expect nothing less from my queen." My queen. The word should have felt foreign, presumptuous. Instead, they felt right. A title she was born to bear, a destiny she was ready to embrace. "The path won't be easy," Darius continued. "Casimir's allies will regroup. We'll face challenges both within the kingdom and beyond its borders. We'll face them together," Elena said with newfound confidence. She touched the crescent birthmark on her shoulder, still warm from the power that had flowed through it. "My mother protected me with her last breath, hiding me until I was ready to return. I won't let her sacrifice be in vain." Darius cupped her face in his hands, his eyes shining with pride and something deeper, a love that had waited 15 years to be acknowledged. "May I?" he asked, his gaze dropping to her lips. In answer, Elena leaned forward, closing the distance between them. Their lips met in a kiss that felt like coming home, gentle yet passionate, the culmination of a journey neither had expected to take. When they finally parted, Darius pressed his forehead against hers. "I've waited so long for you, Elena." She smiled, her heart full. "I'm here now," she promised, "and I'm not going anywhere." Above them, through the crystal dome, the full moon shone down in blessing, illuminating the Alpha King and his Luna Queen, separated by fate, united by destiny, and bound by a love stronger than time itself. If you enjoyed this story, a like or comment really helps. And if you wish to hear more tales like this one, make sure you subscribe so you never miss the next tale.